All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Grandmaster Magesh Panchanathan, and we are live for your games analyzed with Grandmaster. So, welcome to the stream. We will be doing the game analysis. I see some of you are already all set, ready for this, and we have started. So, I see Mahir wants to know how do we send the game. So, I have my email address posted here, Mahir. So, first thing is at some point, I'm going to ask a question, and whoever answers the question first, they're going to get a chance to get their games analyzed with me. So this week has been a busy week. We've had a lot of interesting camps. Harish is here. Hey, Harish. We've had a lot of interesting camps. We have a national camp that's going on, and okay, hold on for a second. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be working on, the game analysis, but I'm going to be giving a question, and you guys should be answering the question when you're ready. And the first person to answer the question will be the one who'll get the games analyzed. Sketch me not. Hi. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes for maybe a few more kids to join in. I know we usually get our regular group who wants to do this. So, in the meantime, what do you think we should do? If you have any questions, you can ask me. There was a really cool game that I came across today. Maybe I can show that. Let me pull up this game. Mahir, you don't send the game. Yeah, you can send it on Gmail. Absolutely, Gmail is totally fine. But let's wait for us to ask the question, and then based on the answer, that's when you have to send it. So there's no rush. But I wanted to show a really cool game that I came across today. Maybe we should start with that. This is a game that I saw between Petrosian and Korchnoi. So why don't we see this and give it a few minutes for people to join in. By the way, we have some more new ideas coming in for our stream. We are planning to start a nice classic chess theme in which we're going to talk about a lot of classical games, and we're going to go over one of the things I thought which would be really nice for myself was to basically have a chess game with a story. And this is actually the most interesting part of a chess game, right? If you go to a tournament, you're playing a game, it's not just moves. There are so many things that are going on, right? Are you playing for a title, or who's doing what? Did you need a draw? Did you have a record with your opponent? So there are lots of things that are interesting, and we have a grandmaster who'd probably be best at explaining those stories. But I will announce it once we get that. In the meantime, I'm going to show you a really cool game. This is the one I saw today, and I was teaching this in camp too, and I felt I wanted to show this. Petrosian is playing white, and Korchnoi is playing black. So basically at this point, everything is going very smooth up to this point until here, where Korchnoi decides to play Queen A5, where I think Bishop to G7, followed by castling would have been much simpler, yeah? But okay, for whatever reason, he decides to go Queen A5. Bishop takes F6, pawn takes F6, and bishop takes E4. So clearly, white's already in a better position, I think, because I have better development. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm just going to spend like maybe 2 or 3 minutes just going through the most interesting part. I saw a very cool part of this game. Korchnoi plays bishop b4, Petrosian rook c1, normal again, a6, which is probably a little too slow. Now the king is safe. Every single piece is ready for an attack. So this looks pretty awesome. And look at black's pieces, mostly not ready and not developed and everything, right? So knight to d7 was played. And he kicked the bishop out. He kicks the queen out. And starting here, let's just see if anyone can guess a move. Black has double pawns, Mahesh says. That's right. These double pawns are not so great. I want to see if you can guess like the next two moves of the game. And that's the main reason I wanted to show. I think this is a pretty cool position. Let's go. What do you think white should play? Petrosian's move. What should Petrosian play? All right. I'm getting knight f3 from Manish. Okay. What else? Anyone else? Any interesting moves? Knight to d5. Nice. I like that. Pawn to e4. Okay. Very, very interesting. I think knight to d5 is probably stronger than knight f3. I'm going to remove knight to f3 and pawn to e4 because knight f3 is you're coming back, right? Knight to d5 on the other hand is you're moving forward. So I like knight to d5 more than knight to f3. And e4 is not bad, Harish, but it's not as forcing. Queen to b3, I'm going to keep it as a candidate move because that does put pressure on f7. So I like that too. So Harish wants to play e4 with the idea of f4. Harish, why not f4? Did you think about it? In fact, in the game, he played f4. And this is the point I wanted to quickly see. I thought this is really cool. Oh, Hawk is Anirudh. Hey, Anirudh. Good to see you. Pawn to f4 was played. Actually, queen to e3 is a move that we will all look at and probably say, oh, I don't want to play f4 because we're going to lose that pawn. But actually, pawn to f4 really sends the queen back. Queen to e3, just I move the king. And boom, that's it. Game over. There's no way you will be able to survive that, right? So after f4, the queen went all the way back to b8. All right. One more guess. What do you think Petrosian played here? f5. Not bad. Anything else? You have a lot of attacking moves. I think your opponent's pieces are all pushed back. How would you continue your attack? Queen to b3 says Maher. Okay, nice. Anything else, guys? Come on, I want you to be more aggressive. Queen to b3. Queen to b3 is aggressive. Not bad at all, Manish. But how about a little bit more aggression? Can we do something even more? Knight to d5, not bad. Again, it's really good. But you want to see what Petrosian did? Petrosian is, by the way, known for his quiet and slow games and positional ones. But guess what? Bishop captures f7 check. I see that you guys have not seen this, or you did not see this coming. Bishop captures f7 check. Queen b3 was going to force me to castle. If you play queen b3, I'm going to be forced to castle. That's kind of helping me, right? Bishop captures f7 check. King captures f7. I think the follow-up is pretty straightforward. That is queen b3 check. King has to move back. And now what? So, I mean, I'm going to just play this out again. Very natural follow-ups. Most of you already guessed some of these moves. Now he played knight d5. Now the difference is the king just doesn't get to castle. Knight's going to c7. Knight's going to e6. This is just too strong, yeah? Bishop d6 was played. Knight e6. I thought this was just very, very impressive that he played bishop f7, sacrificing that piece, and then went knight c7. So he not only wins the rook back, but at this point, he's going to continue his attack and, basically crushing. All right, cool. That was a nice game I came across today. I thought we should all know that. Now let's go back to our question for the day. All right. The first person to answer the question will get your game analyzed. You can email it to me. Who played the evergreen chess game? I need both the players who played the game. The first person to give me both the players, you will get your game analyzed. Let's go. Who played the evergreen chess game? In the meantime, I'm going to pull up this game also really quickly so I can show this to you. Okay, Anirudh wins a chance. He's the first one to give me the answer. That's right, Anderson against Dufresne. And Anirudh, you can email me your game. And looks like Harish went right below that. So just email me the game and we'll take a look at your game and analyze it. In the meantime, I'm going to show our viewers what this game is all about. All right, I just pulled up the game. Anirudh, you can email me your game, okay? So we are going to be looking at the Anderson game. Let's go back here. Where is it? All right, we got the game. So let's take a look at this game while Anirudh is emailing me his game. Anirudh, it could be an online game. It could be an over-the-board tournament game from before. It doesn't really matter. Just want to make sure it's a game that has some good content. Don't do a blitz game or a bullet game that didn't have much. Oh, you don't have it. Anirudh is passing it on. Okay, which means let's go with Harish. Harish came in second. Harish, you get to have a game analyzed. So email it to me. In the meantime, I'm going to pull up this. I'll also tell you who came in third in that case. Maybe if Harish also doesn't have it. Mahir came in. Mahir, you kind of gave the first names, but you're still the third. But Harish, do you have a game? If you have a game, Harish, you are the one who should be sending it to me. In the meantime, let's take a look at this game. Anderson against Dufresne. I don't know how to exactly pronounce his name. I've been calling him Dufresne with the S as a silent one. Dufresne. I don't know. Let's see. Let's keep it Dufresne. Oh, Harish says he has already sent a game. Fantastic. But I'm going to quickly show this beautiful evergreen game. It's the Evans Gambit. These are the games you guys should always know. So do not forget it. So I'm just going to go to the most interesting part of the game. So black actually gives this pawn back on d3 and doesn't want to capture on c3, which is a very common idea. So they don't want to go pawn, gobbling too much. So after queen b3, queen f6, e5. This is again a nice idea to open up the file. He's saying take my pawn. If you do, I'm going to open up the file. So a bunch of developing moves happens and black actually tries to do a very nice idea. So black gives the pawn back for faster development and using his own pieces into the game. So he does achieve that. Knight d2, bishop b7 and knight e4. So up to this point, Anderson has developed all his pieces beautifully. Queen f5 was played. And yeah, this is the most critical point. Bishop d3 and queen h5. And here is the main move. Let's see who remembers this move. Who can tell me what did Anderson play here? What do you think Anderson played here? Let's see. And Harish says he pulled up his game. So I'm also going to, he sent me his game. I'm also going to pull that up on the side. All right, knight f6, knight d6. Knight f6, Mahir says it's a bad move. Well, actually, knight f6 is the right move, Mahir. I don't know why you played it and then you thought it's bad. Actually, it's not a bad move. Well, there are, of course, defending ideas. Knight to f6, very strong move. After pawn takes, the position opens up. And black played rook to g8 and rook to d1. And now black fell for a blunder. I think black can definitely put up a really good defense. But I still like this beautiful play. Some of these great games have structures where you could see how every single piece is being used. Every single piece is put to the task, right? Oh, Harish is saying he sent the wrong game. Okay, I just downloaded it, but go ahead and send the right one really quickly so I can make sure we are looking at the right one. Anyways, let's finish this off by playing queen takes f3 was played. Rook takes e7 check, knight takes e7. So now let's see who can finish off the game. This is a very famous finish, and that's why this is actually called the evergreen game. Let's see if you guys can finish off with a checkmate. I need a forced checkmate all the way to the end. Type it in chat with a full checkmate. In the meantime, Harish, I'm waiting for your... Okay, I got the second game from Harish. Queen d7, you're right, Mahir. That has to be checks, but can you give me the follow-ups? After queen d7, what happens? Queen d7, king captures on d7. What do you do after that? Queen takes d7, king takes d7. It's a beautiful position. You're trying to play checks, and it's a queen sacrifice, which is fantastic, but how do you follow up? Manish, you don't want to go and get the queen. See, after sacrificing your own queen, you go after this queen. Okay, you can win the queen back, but I want you to go after the king. Go after the king. After queen takes d7, king takes d7, how do we go after the king? There are two double checks. I'm going to play the first move. Beautiful queen sacrifice. But here's the thing. I could go to b5 or I could go to f5, and both of them are double checks. I see there are some splits. Anirudh is saying go to b5. Mahati is saying go to f5. Interesting. Which one should I do? Which one makes more sense? Bishop to b5? Well, think about this. When you play the bishop over to b5 or to f5, I want you to think about where the king will run. Actually, the king is most likely going to run outside. I'll tell you that much. Okay? Mahir and Manish are also joining with f5. That's right. I will not go down to c8 or e8, guys, because that's actually the bad thing. First, I'm going to try to run out. And if I can, because if I go back to c8, I'm going to get mated. If I go to e8, I'm going to get mated. So unfortunately, bishop b5 doesn't work because the king goes to e6. I'll just show you in just a second. Bishop to f5 makes more sense because king c6 runs into a beautiful checkmate on d7. That's right. I think Aniruddha is writing king c8 has d7 checkmate. But this, look at this. The bishop is guarding this one. This bishop is guarding this one. And the rook is guarding this one. So that's like a beautiful mating net, yeah? So a very, very nice instructive end. But actually, black played king to e8. And after bishop to d7 check, he went king to f8. I think king to d8 would have been very nice too. But look at that. Bishop to e7 checkmate. This is another kind of checkmate. Well, I actually don't need this. I would love to play in my game. Checkmate your opponent with two bishops on the 7th rank right in front of the king. Right? That has to be cool. All right, good. So we have, that's the evergreen game. Don't forget it. It's Anderson who played this beautiful game in 1852. Now, let's see what Harish has. Probably the same level of play, right, Harish? We have seen Anderson. Now we're going to see Harish. Similar play. Okay, we have his game. Harish, what is your ID? I see Machine 86, a Death Eater. I think you're the Death Eater, right? I'm going to move on with the game. You can confirm the name of your ID on chat, so I will know if you're playing white or black. And I also probably would like to change the position in that perspective. Okay, you're playing black. All right, we got Neil. Hey, Neil. Good to see you. We have Harish's game, Death Eater, playing against Machine 86 in this game. And we are just starting because Harish was the one who answered. Actually, Anirudh was the one who answered the question to my evergreen game. But he was not ready to get a game unliced. So he had Harish, who came in second, got his game unliced. I was getting his game unliced. Okay, c5, d5, got the Benoni. Knight c3, pawn takes, and g6. Everything looks pretty normal. So for those who know or don't know what the structure of Benoni is, I'm going to just pause here for a second. Because every kind of game you need to talk about, you need to understand the pawn structure, which is the most important thing to decide the plans, right? So if you look at it, these are the pawns that tell you a story. None of the other pawns do. The pawns right here in the middle, these pawns tell you a story. What do they tell you? Let's see if you can guess a little bit. What does this pawn tell me? What does a pawn on d5 for white tell me? Every single pawn gives some information, right? Neil's going directly for the plan. Black has to play b5 or he is done for. That's right. That's true. But I would like to arrive at that, right? By going through some of these ideas very clearly. The pawn on d5 says space. That's right. Strong space. White has a lot of space. The pawn on c5, b5 and a7 against b2 and a2 tell me that black actually has queenside majority. The pawn on e4 tells me that white has a stronger center. So all of these things tell you some information. White wants to play in the center kingside center altogether. Black wants to play on the queen side. Yeah? Why? Because I have majority here. Very obvious once you understand the pawn structure, right? Always try to arrive at plans based on the pawn structure. So bishop g5, bishop g4. Do I like the bishop on g4? I am not so sure. Again, I'm not so familiar with the opening. Maybe Neil can help us with the opening. Neil, Harish was playing black. Bishop to g4 seems a little odd. I don't know. But let me check the reference really quickly. I can tell you what is going on. So clearly we don't have much games here. I think we have already stepped out. By the way, those who don't know what reference is, I use ChessBase, and reference database is a great tool for understanding recent games or like seeing what the main opening moves are. So I'm not going to falsely claim that I have any knowledge of these moves. Disclaimer. But just like I suspected, looks like h6 is the main move. Bishop g4 does not seem like a good move in this position. I see Udasin and other strong players who have played h6. Now, the reason why I felt bishop g4 doesn't make sense is because what we decided earlier. If I have to play b5, that bishop is going to play a main role, right? So the bishop going there and probably trading is not a great thing. Another thing I'll tell you is if the bishop is on g4, pawn is on g6, you have to react to h3 with a trade on f3 or running back, right? So if you're trading on if you're trading on bishop takes f3, you're just kind of coming back. So that's one more thing I don't like, particularly with this pawn on g6. So you have to keep that in mind. Bishop g4, bishop e2, castle, a6, and h3. So just like I suspected, so we got the trade, yeah? So pawn goes to h3, bishop takes f3, and bishop takes f3. But I would have played a4 before as white. I think this is not a bad idea to play h3, but maybe a4 was required. And Harish, now I would play b5. Unless, is e5 a problem? No, I think e5 I'll just take. I was thinking b5. e5 captures if there was any problem here. I don't think so because the rook just goes up. White might still have some compensation for the pawn. I think it looks still interesting, but nothing too worry. I mean, nothing that makes me too worried. Since your opponent is letting you play this, Harish, I think it's important you play it. Because white is going to play a4. And I think he did that in the game. See, you gave him a move, he just plays a4. I mean, it's not like it's impossible to play b5 now. It's just that it's going to be more work for you, right? So watch this. If you do some random move like rook b8 to play b5, what do you think white might play, guys? Does anyone have a move for white? Again, very thematic in these structures. White gets to play a5. That's right. Mahati and Harish both came up with that idea. And I think more of you are following up with that. That's right. a5 is very, very thematic. What this does is this actually stops these two pawns. Queen b3 and other moves are possible, but a5 really takes the cream, right? Because what happens is when you play b5, capture. And you kind of split this pawn structure, right? So what you have to do is after a4, you will have to play something like b6 and then rook b8 and then play b5. So you have basically made your life a little bit more difficult. So if you start with b5, you can always play this move next. So that's why I'm telling you that it's important for you to time your moves, yeah? All right, let's see. It's still good. You have given up your bishop, but in some sense, it's okay because you lack space. There are three minor pieces. If it was 4, imagine the bishop being on c8, right? I would just be struggling to find a square to move to. I really don't know where I'd go. I mean, like, I want to go to d7 to try to play b5, but the knight itself on d7 is blocking that, right? So it's kind of difficult to achieve any of these moves or ideas when you lack space. So that could be a little difficult. So that's the only advantage I see of the trade. Knight e5. Do we like this? Okay, I'm just going to figure out what is your plan when the bishop moves and f4 comes. Yeah? By the way, on that token, I don't think maybe white should even play rook e1. I might have considered, if I'm white, to play g3, pull the bishop back, and then maybe play something like this. That's one idea. The other idea, of course, is I want the bishop over here to keep an eye on b5. But that's also a dangerous thing, because if black eventually achieves b5, that's going to be a lot more difficult, right? So let's see. So after rook e1, knight e5. So the problem, again, I'm worried about is when the bishop moves, I get to play f4. So your opponent played rook e3. I'm not a big fan of this for sure. Rook e3 cannot be right. Let's say I go bishop e2. I think we should analyze bishop to e2. What do you think black might do? I think you have some serious serious questions to deal with. I'm going to play f4, and I'm going to play e5 after that. This looks pretty difficult to deal with, right? Maybe h6 to start with. Let's kick h6 and the bishop runs back. But it still doesn't make much of a difference, even if I go to e3. But e3 kind of blocks the file. I'm trying to see if I could go somewhere else. The reason why e3 is, for example, let's say the knight comes back, I'm hitting this pawn. So that's why I was trying to wonder. Ooh, Mahir is suggesting g5. Now, I would not do this move, Mahir. The problem with this move is you're weakening a lot of squares. You're weakening the squares that your bishop cannot guard. That's even more of a problem. Not only did you weaken a square, but look at what color that is. That's a light square, right? Do you have a light square bishop? Nope. So I'd never do that. That's very, very dangerous, right? Extremely dangerous positionally. If this knight finds a way to f5, which it will, trust me, it'll be a slow plan, but I will be able to eventually get there. And once I get there, that's it. Your king is done for. Because you have given me too good a square to sit on, right? Never weaken light squares like that. But maybe h6 is what was required. But bishop e2, I think white should be completely fine. So I think you're focusing on the area that's slightly off, Harish. Again, I would probably still just play this. Because I want to play b5, yeah? I just want to focus on achieving this move. So maybe rook b8 next move, or, queen going to c7 and b7. It could be any of those ideas, but you have to achieve b5. I think Neil was saying this very early on. The whole game does revolve around b5. Now, white's idea usually revolves around this. So to do that, I myself have to move this bishop. I have to figure out a good square for the bishop anyways. So playing knight e5 seems to help me do that, right? We don't want to do that. Okay, let's see what happens. Knight e5, rook e3. Okay, that's not a great move. And you played knight to c4. Interesting. So now you are actually not taking the bishop, but you're trying to put some pressure here. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out if knight on c4 is actually a really good thing or if it's not. Because I know you have to go back. And then you played queen to c7. So you're kind of leaving your knight on c4. That's pretty interesting, yeah? I'm just worried that I'm leaving it in a place where it might not be that safe. Let's think a little bit. I could attack this knight with queen d3 and queen b3. Frankly, both moves don't really worry me as black, because queen d3, I think knight e5 again hits the queen and the bishop again. So that's a problem. So not worried about queen to d3. Maybe worried about queen to b3 a little bit, but then I saw this move. And I think I'm still okay, because I get to go knight to d7. So knight a5, c4. I mean, you continue to play on the queen side the way you're supposed to. So it was a little tricky to look at, but maybe you're still okay, Harish. pawn to g4. So, okay, clearly your opponent is going wrong here. What do you guys think? Who can tell me why I'm not a big fan of pawn to g4? I think this is a huge potential weakness. I can visualize a board where this weakness is going to play a big role. Let's see who can tell me. Mahati came up with some of the answer early on when black played h6 g5. Let's see if you guys can come and tell me why white's move to g4 does not feel so right. What should black be aiming at? The dark squares are weakened. That's right. So to deal with the dark squares, you know what you should be doing here? You should simply target a trade. I don't know if you did that in the game. I'm going to look at this. The minute g4 is committed, in my head, if I'm playing this game, I'm thinking, I want this guy. I really want to get rid of that guy, because once I get these two out of the game, that square could be my dream outpost square, right? It's not there yet. So that's why g4, you should kind of look at it in a way where it could be a potential danger, but not yet. Because if white achieves f4, then the story is different. Yeah, it's not going to be the same. All right, let's move on. Pawn h6, bishop to f4, knight to d7, queen c2. Okay, so nothing special is happening. White's really not trying to play f4 in this whole time, and black is really not trying to play b5 this whole time. So I feel like both players are kind of missing out on important plans. Knight e5, bishop g2. Okay. All right, so you did commit g5. So I'm kind of okay with this, because I know you're gaining the squares that we talked about, but you are giving up some squares. So you have to be very careful. But the one thing I do see is the chance of the knight getting to these squares much, much faster than this knight doing, sorry, my arrows are not so great, doing this. So this knight going to e2 and g3 and f5 seems too slow. So I feel like the black's pieces are in a good place to actually get bishop e5, knight f4. So seems like a reasonable thing to do. Very, very interesting. Both players are fighting for squares, basically. Rook f1, bishop e5. Harish, I really love this. This is the favorite part of my game, because this is a very, very thematic play, right? So what you're basically doing is controlling the dark squares, and you're trading this. And you're going to leave your opponent with a bad bishop with a bunch of pawns fixed on light squares. And you can happily play around on dark squares. So bishop to e5, my favorite move of the game so far. Bishop takes e5. Knight c takes e5, rook e3, knight f4. Whew, look at those two knights. What would you not do to get those knights, right? Dark square complex for white is absolutely dead. This is, again, super important when you trade off bishops and fix pawns. I want you to keep an idea on that. I think white has completely given up. So I'm just going to retrace a little bit to see where white could have still fought for an initiative. Of course, I'm going to go back to the point where he played g4. I mean, I don't like the rook on e2 and the bishop on f3 and all of those things already. But this is probably the point where white still has a chance. What should I do? Let's think. If you're playing white here, how do you untangle yourself? I do want to play something like maybe b3 and send that knight packing. But the long diagonal scares me a little bit. I do want to find a better square for this bishop. Maybe g3 is definitely on the cards, with the idea of bishop going back to g2. That might not be a bad idea, right? b3 is suggested by Manish, but b3, Vaishnav was saying g3, that's right. g3 I do like. I think g3 I'm a fan of, because at some point I do want to do that. But b3, Manish, I'm not so sure. That long diagonal looks too weak. Mahir, you said knight e5. I don't think that's the move. I mean, we have to look at a move for white, not for black. So, yeah, I'm probably looking at g3, and I have another move. I think maybe rook c1 is also possible. The whole idea of rook c1 would be to play b3. Right, this knight is not really welcome here. You should make it very clear. If you're playing white and your opponent has a knight sitting on c4 and hanging around there forever, That's really not what we want to do, yeah? So, or want what we want to allow. The main problem was this starting here. So, to address the exact questions, rook e3 was not the right idea. Bishop e2 was better. And to address black's problems, Harish, you should have played for b5 probably much earlier. And here the biggest mistake was g4. Positionally dubious. And then Harish does a great job of trading bishops and bringing both the knights here. Now let's see how he converts. Rook f3. Okay, this cannot be right. Why is he giving up the rook? Was this a mouse slip? And where did you decide to be nice about it, Harish? Because you didn't take the rook. Which I think is pretty odd. Because not only win the rook, you also win this pawn on h3. I am 100% sure now it's a mouse slip. You missed a free exchange. No, you're giving me a heart attack, Harish. Knight captures f3. What would you play here? Let's say you're playing white and you are definitely not in the best scenario. But let's see if white can try to figure it out. He says it's a mouse slip. Okay, that's good. That's right. Was e5 possible instead of g4? Ooh, that's kind of an interesting question. I'm going to go back. e5. I don't know if you have enough, Vaishnav. I think e5 is just going to allow my knight to come back. I think you're hoping for a pawn capture and maybe like run down with the d pawn, which is good if that happens. But guess what? My knight simply captures, and I don't think we got anything for the pawn. So that would be pretty unfortunate. So going back to the position that we saw, what would you play as white is what I was talking about. You know what white could still do? White could still use the space. I think that's something that you should work with, yeah? Knight to e2, very good. I think Manish, you wrote knight d2, but I'm guessing that you meant knight to e2. What will black play, guys? So here, I'll show you a couple of interesting ideas. First, knight takes e2, queen takes e2. Let's see that happens. The first problem is you want to make sure f4 doesn't happen, right? f4 is just a very annoying idea. And your domination of the dark squares is absolutely important, right? And to do that, you have to stop white from playing f4 at all times. So Harish is suggesting this move, a knight to g6. That's right. Keep your knight on g6, so it's eyeing both h4, f4, and it's also eyeing e5, right? I really like that knight sitting on g6, making sure none of these pawn moves can happen. Now, maybe I could have played after knight e2, knight g6 directly as well, which is what I think Harish was suggesting. After knight captures, knight captures. Now, if I was playing white, I would frankly think about this move. I'm losing a pawn, but guess what? I think it's adding a lot more value to the game. Opening up a piece, I think, is a lot more important in a game than a pawn. And that's why I did not like knight g6 directly, Harish, right? So going back here, I prefer to take and then go knight g6 and keep this very clear. Look at this. My knight's eyeing both the squares. So there is no f4, there is no e5. And you're kind of looking at both of them and saying not possible, right? And that is kind of important. We need to keep that eye. Now, why is that the other move? Let's look at knight g6, knight f4, knight f4, e5. What's going on here? Let's capture. Who can tell me the next move? I'm going to give it the rook on e5. The only problem is you want to do that before white actually gets to play e5, Harish. You want to do rook e5. You want to establish a blockade before that. Nice. Harish is saying d6. Exactly. Look at what just happened. The bishop that was just absolutely bad might turn into a monster, yeah? Queen captures d6 and you go bishop captures b7. And it's not that even I want to win this pawn. Most importantly, I want to go here. Now I'm kind of outside my pawn chain. Now you can dominate on dark squares, but I, as white, can dominate on light squares now because the bishop got out. So this kind of an idea you should always do. If you have a chance to reverse this role and you have a chance to go back on the offense when your opponent is pushing you back, you should absolutely take that. So going back, I would do this, knight captures e2 and knight g6, and now, like Harish mentioned, I would put the rook there. See, watch the difference now. Let's say you play e5 right now, and I take, and knight takes. Yes, the bishop did get out a little bit, but it's still pretty bad because you didn't let that bishop or the pawn on d5 move. So I'm still looking at a bunch of fixed pawns on light squares, and the bishop is still pretty bad, even after dropping a free pawn. But let's say e5 is not played. For whatever reason, let's say white decides to play it a little slow. I play something like rook c1. You could go rook e5. That seals the game. There are so many interesting ways to win this one. Maybe h5 is one of the plans. So you could probably go knight f4, king g7, rook all the way to h8, and then h4. And then, of course, you can mobilize your queen as well at some point. The whole idea is this has become like a two-result game. Black will win or a draw. That's it. Nothing in between. Or nothing for white. White can simply wait. Oh, Haim. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in the stream before. Maybe this is the first time you're seeing us. Okay, so this looks like a really dominant idea. Let's see what happened in the game. Rook f3, knight g6, king h2, rook e5. So, okay, you're still completely dominating. I like that. The dark squares are yours. Now, if they go knight e2, you can always capture and drop another knight in there. So this looks pretty difficult. This is the bishop that I would call a pawn, right? Think about what the bishop is doing. Is nothing better than any of these pawns that are doing. Just guarding the next light square, and that's exactly what the bishop is doing. Nothing more, right? You never want to end up with a bishop like that. Oh, say hi to Aryan from me. Okay, so rook to e3, rook to e8. I'm kind of curious to see how Harish broke through. Yeah? A tall pawn, that's right, Kumar. That's one of those pieces. Oh, now it's even more after f3. Look at that. These kind of bad bishops, particularly with a knight dub, is like really awesome. Interesting question. I think Vaishnav is asking, can you play knight h4 and try to win that exchange? You know what? I might not do that, guys. I'll show that to you really quickly because I had a very similar endgame. And if possible, after this game, if you have time, I'll quickly load it up to show you. But let's say black plays knight h4. Okay, really hitting this bishop. And I could go back. But assuming, let's say I play rook f2. I'm just going to save that bishop. Would you win that exchange? So if you play knight g2, rook g2, knight g2, king g2, you are up in exchange. And should be probably winning because you're up in exchange, right? Vaishnav is saying in a different position, but I'm just still curious about this position, Vaishnav. If something like this happens, I might not even take that bishop, guys. That bishop is that bad. Right? I would really... And also, my knights are that good. Right? I would still go for this plan and play h5, and then that probably just end up in a checkmate for the king. So I think that's absolutely a possibility. I think Vaishnav was talking about this move in a different position, but that's okay. After rook f2, how are you up? Well, Mahir is asking after rook f2, how are you? Well, I want to take on g2. I will win an exchange, right, Mahir? Because knight for a bishop would be a trade, but the other knight will end up capturing your rook. That's why you will actually end up winning an exchange. So you're up an exchange, but you're trading your two great pieces for a bad piece, right? And that's why I said I might not do it at all, right? I don't really need the exchange. Instead, I attack and I win, yeah? Exactly. Mahati is pointing that out. You take all the pressure off and you end up... So sometimes these things have a cost. That's what it is, right? So let's say you have a really beautiful attack on a backward pawn and you're like building pressure, right? What is it worth? What is it worth? That's usually the big tricky thing, right? Is it worth one pawn? Is it worth two pawns? How do you decide, right? That's the kind of decision here. So here what you're seeing is you have this amazing knights and a bad bishop. Is it worth an exchange? In this case, maybe not yet. All right, knight takes d5. Ooh, we just picked up a free pawn. That was anticlimactic. I was hoping for something a lot more, kind of squeeze in, get a checkmate with beautiful sacrifice. But okay, your opponent played f3 and allowed you to play knight takes d5. And for those who are just quickly looking at what is going on, there's a pin. Even if after knight takes d5, you will play rook takes d5, which is kind of what happened in the game. Rook takes d5. Yeah, at least now I wish if this bishop was on e4, I could justify losing the pawn. Probably still lost, but at least would have been nice. Queen f5, knight f4. Harish, you crushed your opponent here. Absolutely no chance. Look at that. Even though the queen looks like in a nice position. Wow, now look at all of our pieces. I mean, all of our pawns. I mean, they're all well protected. Cannot even touch it. And two amazing pieces are still right there. Let's just go on and see how the game ended now. Queen c2. Rook takes d5. Okay, that's the second pawn. Okay, is this really any trouble or... I don't even know what white's trying to do. I was thinking if I should take the pawn. I mean, at this point, I think it's not that much fun because black is just winning probably 100 different ways. So I'm just going to go with it, Harish. We're going to see how you finished it. Ooh, queen d2. Can we do something interesting with this? Looks like you did do d3. King f8. And black won on time, guys. So looks like this is where the game ends. And but the result is absolutely not in doubt. I think throughout the game, it's been pretty obvious. I think very, very early in the game, white had his chance when he played rook e3. That was like the most critical point. But since then, Harish, you've dominated. Played a very good game. I like that. Oh, we have AP. Hi, AP. Good to see you. We just finished up a beautiful good knight versus bad bishop game. I am going to show one of my games because this reminded me that, and I do have to talk about that position. But before that, let me go back to the position we're talking about here. Is this one. Absolute domination of dark squares and a big pawn, as one of the viewers were saying, that the bishop on g2 is absolutely dead, yeah? So, beautiful position, right? Now, let me pull up a game. I do want to do this really quickly because this game that I'm talking about, I played against, forget the title, if I remember right, maybe Women Grandmaster. Very strong player. Let's see if we can pull this up. My chess base is a little bit slow with getting this. And apparently when I search something, the screen goes blank. Interesting. Oh, AP saying knight takes d5 was unnecessary. I mean, I was trying to analyze that position a little bit. But to be fair, every single move was absolutely winning. So it was a little difficult to do anything there. Okay, let's see. What did I get? Nope, I got the wrong game. That's not the game I wanted to show. All right, give me one more minute, everyone. Hopefully I have that game. I'd be really disappointed not to see that. Oh yeah, found it. Okay, now that we have it. Okay, good. So the point here is that black is completely dominating and black is just winning no matter what. So we tried to analyze some moves, but I think it's, I mean, it's actually terrible to play as white here, yeah? So let's go back. I'm going to show a cool game which I played. This was played in 2010 against Amanda Mateer. I believe she's a woman grandmaster. I think so. But yeah, this was a pretty interesting game. But what happened was at some point she made a mistake and became one-sided. So that was unfortunate for her. She's a very strong player. But I'm going to flip the board. I was playing this from white. I'm just going to go through to one particular point just to talk about the similarities between the two games. Yeah. Knight takes d4. We have the typical, probably a bind structure with e4, and so bind structure usually happens with c4 and e4. In this case, we have an English structure because I'm not playing e4. Knight b3, knight e5. So I think at this point, my opponent probably missed something and played knight e5, and I think white should just totally dominate going forward, right? AP is saying, yes, I'm going to be with Sagar Shah tomorrow. I don't know how it's going to be. It's probably going to be quite embarrassing. It's going to be me and my wife, who's a woman FIDE master, Anuprita, and Chess Base India, and international master Sagar Shah wants to do a show about our love story. So I don't know what. No, that's going to be completely a different genre. That's not going to be on chess. So it is exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see. I'm probably going to come out as a villain, but that's a different story. But let's see this one, yeah? So what should white play here? And just to give you a heads up, that bishop is the one that's going to end up really, really bad. Just like the bishop we saw in Harish's game. What's the move? Let's see if anyone can come up with that move. What would you like to play here as white to probably positionally dominate that bishop in a few moves eventually? Don't see any exact moves. E4 says Anirudh. That's not a bad idea. Mahir, you're talking about Julio Sedora Drew Magnus Carlsen. Yes, that's right. Grandmaster Julio, who actually taught in our mastermind camp last week. He's a great guy. He's a UT Dallas head coach. My former teammate from UT Dallas. Yes, he did make a draw against Magnus Carlsen. It wasn't the Olympiad, if I remember right, Neil. I think it was probably 2-3 years ago. Not long time ago. He's a very, very strong and solid player. You drew Julio and Blitz game over the board. That's pretty impressive. Okay, now I'm seeing moves as e4, knight a4, bishop f4 is what I've seen so far. All of these moves are not bad, but guess what? You could immediately pin that pawn down. c5 is what I played in the game. It's a nice tactical idea because if you take the pawn, you get forked. Neil, this is my game from 2010. I just wanted to show this because this has a very similar theme from almost like what Harish played with the two fascinating knights. So I just thought I should show this. c5 first creates a problem for this pawn. If bishop captures, knight a4, and that's it, right? So this is going to be a problem. Yeah, you can't play queen d6 yet, I guess, but soon, yeah, queen d6 is definitely going to come in at some point. So watch what happens after this. Queen to d8, bishop f4 makes a lot of sense because always we end up trading the good bishop, right? The more pieces that guard d6 that go off the board, it's better for white because then white gains more and more control on d6, which means pushing the pawn becomes impossible for black. So bishop f4, bishop d6. So that's pretty straightforward. I got the bishop out of the board, knight here, and queen d4. So the problem is any move like d6, I think, simply runs into a pin because the queen on d8 is hanging. And also d5 runs into e4. At some point, again, the pawn on d5 is going to fall because of the pin. So my opponent played, let's say, rook to b8. Rook fd1, queen f6. So here, I think there was the most critical point. I'll pause and quickly explain. I realize that d6 is almost impossible for black to play, but b6 is still very much a reasonable move. And it's a reasonable threat. And if black achieves b6, I don't think white's going to be in such a great advantage. It's almost going to be equal. Because once this is gone, trust me, this will come. And if d5 happens, and I think it's anybody's game, it becomes super easy. Can anyone tell me how I can stop b6? I really want to stop b6. And I want to put an end to that permanently. Right? Do we have any interesting ideas to do that, guys? What do you guys think? Of course, there's also queen trade currently in place. You could trade queens or you could avoid. But any suggestions to stop b6? Knight a4 is not a bad idea. But I wanted to put a permanent end to that. Yeah. So knight b5 Anirudh is suggesting, which is also not a bad idea. You're kind of hitting this pawn, I guess. The thing is, I didn't really even want that move to happen no matter what. Yeah, even with the pawn sacrifice or anything like that. So I thought I found quite an interesting move. I played queen a4. Hitting that pawn, it's actually quite simple. And the problem is, even if I want to sacrifice my pawn, I cannot play b6 anymore, right? So if you play knight a4, I could actually sacrifice my pawn if I want to. It's a possibility, right? Actually, I'm not even sacrificing the pawn. My bad. Because the queens are up for trade. You really cannot take on b6. But when I play queen a4, if you play b6, I just take this pawn and your rook got trapped. So that's not really nice, right? So, yep. I think APU also came up with queen a4. So, queen a4, and my opponent was forced to play a6, and I was like quite happy about it. And now, I think I have total control of this. Now, the rest of the game is about just getting the pieces in there and just, getting this to really work. So, I mean, I'm going to flow through it. It was just a pleasant game, I have to tell you, when you play a game like this. So, knight goes to a5, knight goes to c4, and rook c1, queen b6. So, this knight is ready to go in, and this knight's probably ready to join in soon. f5 was played, knight a4. Queen takes, knight takes, and knight d6. This was just the position that I really, really cherished. Look at that. It's like two knights. Yeah, this is kind of what Harish had. Kind of take the whole thing to the other side with the pawn on g5, and white had h3, g4, and f3. Yeah, so very, very nice. But I also had a similar dilemma, right? I could win the exchange. I could win the exchange right now. I could take on d7. I mean, take on c8 to win the exchange, but I just didn't want to. So the end of this game is even more fun. So watch this. I just decided that this and this piece should just be out of the game. They should just not be ever walking into this game, right? So why you can't take the knight first, says Maher. I don't know which position you're talking about, Maher. So I'm just going to move on. I mean, there could have been possible places where black could have traded on d6 or b6. That's possible. But I'll show you just what happened in the game. I won this pawn because, I mean, now the rook and the knight are under attack, but I move my rook to a3, gaining a tempo. So if you take my knight, I take the knight. So he takes it, I take it back. And he played knight e3, and I played rook to d6. And again, look at that. Two pieces still out of the game. There is one, of course, that can still move. So at some point, I trade that too. So I played rook e3 check. If the king goes here, I mean, she resigned here, but king goes here, I capture, and guess what? I'm going to play king and pawn in game. Because this rook and this bishop will never see the light of the day, right? So just play king f3, e4, g4, and all of that stuff, and it's completely winning. AP is asking, have you ever did a positional queen sack? I'm sure I have, but I don't know if I have any great memory of a win with a positional queen sack. Yeah, I can't exactly remember. There was a long time ago. So some of these games are lost because when you say this, the first thing that comes to mind is I played in the under 14 or under 12 World Championship. Under 14 World Championship in Cannes in France in 1997. And this was an age category tournament. And I was playing Grandmaster Mark Paragua, who's a great player who lives in US now and he's playing here. And he's a great teacher as well. And we're good friends. But this was like the first game we played. And I don't have this game, unfortunately. But if I remember right, I sacrificed my queen for like a bunch of minor pieces. And I think I won that game. But I don't have that. My game against Sadler in ChessBase. I think you're talking about the game against Rosen. Jonathan Rosen, maybe? I don't think I played against Sadler. That was a good one. Okay. I guess that's a good place to wrap up the games itself. I think we did good. Harish, I was very impressed with your game. I love that idea of playing g5, knight g6, and bishop e5. Even though you probably have to work on the opening idea itself. I think if you play the Benoni, you have to focus on b5. So luckily your opponent did not play f4, which would have put you in a slightly difficult situation. So you just have to fix that. But otherwise, I think a very, very good positional game. Keep playing like that and it'll be great. All right, so that I think puts it at a good time to wrap it up. So tomorrow we have a nice show, but like I said, that's probably not a chess show. So it's about me and Coach Anu and how we met and how chess took us all over the world. It's more of storytelling more than anything else. So Harish is saying he doesn't play the Benani and he was just trying it out. Okay, that's cool. And I see a lot of streams, and particularly Indian GMs. A lot of Indian GMs have started streaming and they're putting out amazing content. So you guys should check out all of those things. And Manish is saying your game was also good. Thank you, Manish. Yes, I was very happy with my game. When you win a game like this, it stays in your memory for a long, long time. I don't know, Epi. I don't know if I would be doing any more Kahoots, since we got bombarded with that thing once. Well, with Stanny it went fine, so we might do one at some point. I don't know. Kahoot's a lot of fun, but I don't know if it's still going to be very practical in a live stream. So not 100% sure. Harish is Vidit and Giri are really funny. Yep, Vidit and Giri. Giri has a great sense of humor. You probably all have seen it. His Twitter his tweets are a good certification for that. And Vidit, of course, is great too. Lots of good stuff there. Improving chess. What about improving chess? AP, I don't know. Are you talking about improving chess with the comedians? Yep. That is a really cool thing too. They have comedians who come in and they play and they learn chess, and while they're learning chess, we get to learn chess too, and they're also pretty funny. Oh, Ansh is here. Hi, Ansh. I haven't seen you in a while. AP says he likes that. So that is right. I would recommend anything from Chess Base India, of course. Chess Base India, International Master Sagar Shah has a great content. I think they just went past 400,000 subscribers. And no wonder. They have videos from all over the world. And so that's pretty cool. But like I said, I want to leave all of you guys with a very, very exciting thing that I'm thinking about. We have a Grandmaster with whom we're going to set a stream starting next week. And this is about chess storytelling. The way I've always wanted to learn chess. I wanted to learn chess with the stories. I didn't want to just look at the moves. I wanted to learn why someone played it. Where were they playing it? What were the circumstances, right? There's lots of fun stuff. So I really am looking forward to it. Keep an eye. I will schedule it. I will put some news out on our channel. Hopefully by the end of this week or early next week about the stream. And AP is asking what time are we showing up. I think the stream in Chess Base India where me and Coach Anu are doing it it's going to be tomorrow Eastern time, Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. That's July 31st, 8 a.m. Eastern time. That's when we are doing it. Manish is talking about Vishy Anand's book. That's right, Manish. And that's exactly where I recently heard that too. I've not finished that book, but Coach Arun told me, Grandmaster Arun Prasad, told me about that. And I've been thinking about that a lot too. Because it's so much easier to remember moves when you know the story about it. Instead of just thinking about moves as moves. So, that's right, AP. I know you're on the other side of the coast. That should be probably very early for you. But yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks a lot for stopping by and watching this. This was fun. I'll see you guys next week for this. But tomorrow we have Challenge Your Chess Coach at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So come in, challenge some games, play some blitz. Last week I had an unfortunate outing. I was losing one game in my 3-game simul, and I started focusing on that, and all the other 2 players also flagged me. And I ended up losing all 3 in a row. But I think I'm ready for my revenge tomorrow. So I will be ready for that. I will see all of you guys. And thank you. Bye.